Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. I am Aadi. I have with me Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India. Let's talk to him how India has changed the geopolitical scenario with this one visit and, of course, some other things around the place. Namaskar, sir. Welcome to the show.
Right. Pleasure as always.
Your rating of the Putin visit, sir?
Very successful. Two things. One, that at the bilateral level, it was bound to be successful because we have resumed the summit level uh, dialogue in India after a gap of 4 years.
Oh, yes.
Although, of course, our Prime Minister has been speaking to him and meeting him, that is President Putin, several times, and went to Kazan for the BRICS summit and met him at the SCO. But there was always there was a feeling that the relationship needed to be retaken in hand because it might have drifted a little bit. And there was also a feeling that India might be hesitant because of the Ukraine conflict to give too much visibility to Putin. And as you know, we are negotiating an FTA with the European Union, and Trump is overly.
Trump
Uh,
is.
no, he's been hammering us on the tariff front and making an issue of our purchase of Russian oil, etc., etc. In other words, he was striking blows at us, and whether we should uh, you know pinprick him more by uh, strengthening ties overtly and visibly with Putin and Russia. So that's at the bilateral level. So at the geopolitical level, I think the message is even more important that when it comes to our core national interest and our strategic autonomy, we will factor in all the negatives that there might be in terms of whatever we are hoping to do with the United States and Europe, but we will not compromise.
Mm.
They can have whatever view they have of Putin and Russia. There may be some merit in their, after all, they are right there geographically. There may be some merit in whatever they feel about Putin and Russia, mistakenly or otherwise. But for us, we can't have the same consideration.
Yeah.
Look, for 25, he has been the president in between, and he was prime minister for a short while, but he has been in power for 25 years. So, which means that he has personally steered the India-Russia relationship for 25 years. And in these 25 years, if somebody can tell me that there has been a real negative note under his stewardship in India-Russia relationship, I would find it hard to be convinced. Uh, there has been no uh, damage that he has, under his stewardship, done that Russia has hurt our interests or damaged our interests. So if you have such a steady relationship, then you must recognize the value of the relationship. In fact, both nations recognize the value of the relationship. What is the compulsion of Russia uh, all these years? Now, of course, they're under sanctions for the last 3 years or whatever. Well, what was the compulsion of Russia to keep its doors open? Yes, they had their own self-interest, defense and nuclear and this and that, but it was not something that we didn't benefit from. We benefited from.
Mm.
So there was a mutuality of interest, and he is the man who has been responsible for doing some of the things which others will not do with us. And I don't have to spell out that. So in that context, we've sent a clear message that no matter what the pressures from you, and we have seen these pressures, we've been told in the past that you are on the wrong side of history. It's immoral position. It's not a moral position you've taken. You must condemn Putin for his aggression against Russia. He has violated international law. He's violated the UN Charter. He's violated the rules-based order that today we cannot accept any country violating the borders of another and committing aggression. So he has to be condemned and things like that. Uh, so we have uh, not been, uh, influenced by this kind of rhetoric by the West, and we have preserved our ties with Russia. So inviting him, and then of course inviting him when he's been declared a war criminal by the
Mhm.
International Criminal Court, and openly the West has been saying they want to isolate him. Now, if some countries here and there, Africa, or whatever else, um, you know, are a little careful about not inviting him because they are signatories to the International Criminal Court. He's been, in fact, he didn't even go to South Africa or Brazil,
Yeah,
although they are a member of BRICS. Could have gone, but there is an issue there because both are signatories to the ICC statute. So, in a sense, he's been cut off internationally from visiting major countries, barring China, and a little trip to Saudi Arabia, which I don't count as a major country because there's this oil business between the two in OPEC.
yeah,
But otherwise, a real major significant country, a kind of a leader of the global south, which India is, visiting India and being honored by India
major.
uh, is it helps both sides.
Yeah,
We are conveying that we are attaching value to our bilateral ties with Russia, and we think well of Putin because he's been a strong advocate of a good India Russia ties. And Russia and Putin have been good to us. So there's mutuality of interest in being honoring him. Two things: we have very difficult relations with China, even
hmm,
though with a little uh, unfreezing, not very significant, but nevertheless there is some. But the real issue, border issue, uh, the strategic threat that China poses to us, all these things are there. And the manner in which they have reacted to Japan, to Takeichi, and the kind of vocabulary they are using and the threats that they are making should be listened to very carefully by others too. Because
hmm.
China is showing its real face, especially on sovereignty related issues, territorial issues, which are very much issues between us and China. And with Russia and with America, we're having a lot of problems currently with Trump. So, which is the relationship amongst the great powers, which is stable and steady? It is Russia. Therefore, we must acknowledge it, and we are acknowledging it by inviting him and giving him honors.
When you look at the global situation right now, so I mean, there is, I would say, compared to about 6 to 8 months ago, probably pre-Trump and even post-Trump, in a large aspect of it, there's a larger acceptance of Russia today, except the Europeans, which are the loudest part of it. Now, when I mention that, we also see this effort by the Europeans to kind of keep that pressure up, keep that narrative up. So it starts from the drones at their airport, so-called Russian drones to their airport, which has never been proven. It starts from the war rhetoric. It starts from the whole peace plan and this and that, and then it came down to the fact of putting up an article within our country. And I find that our media is absolutely, fair enough. You want to put an article up, but figure out where you are, at what point you are in. The news agencies were there at the Russian ambassador, the German ambassador, to take a statement on this thing. I mean, why? For what? Why are we giving that importance? This whole thing about the Europeans, especially, and Americans, there was no reaction. That's very interesting, and I'll come to that. But why is Europe so antsy about this whole thing between India and Russia? The way they've reacted, they've actually caused more damage to anything else.
The interesting thing is that we were under a lot of pressure from the United States to start
Mm.
with on our relationship with
Russia.
Russia, uh, and Europe also joined in, but not as vociferously.
Mm.
Though they were saying things, negative things also, but not as vociferously. Uh, Now, today, Europe is actually more vociferous than currently
America.
United States.
Yeah.
Currently, United States is. I think that there are a couple of reasons. One is that they are frustrated. In fact, it's a huge, huge, huge blow to the prestige of Europe, to the role of Europe, to the importance of Europe, to the self esteem of Europe, that on an issue of European security, conflict on European soil, and they are ignored. Trump is going right over, US is going right over their head and talking directly to Putin, and they feel left out. And from their point of view, you, how can United States and Russia take a decision over their heads with regard to long-term security, European security? Number one. Number two, when Biden administration decided to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia and so started supporting Ukraine in the manner in which they did, progressively selling them more and more lethal arms and longer range weaponry to attack Russia, within the territory of Russia. The Europeans joined in a big way, very actively and very supportive of this. Now that under Trump, there has been a change in the US policy towards Russia, and Trump wants to engage Putin and try and find a solution. The Europeans don't know what to do. They went along with the Americans when the Americans were on a war path with Russia. Now, if they were to join hands with Trump and also pursue a new policy of engaging Russia, where do they stand? I mean, they will be making fools of themselves.
Yeah.
That you have no policy of your own. That when America asks you to be tough, you were tough. When America wants you to be more flexible, you are flexible. So where do you stand in all this? Now, that is why they're very, very frustrated. The second frustration comes from the fact that whatever they may think about their, their position being diminished because of being left out of the negotiations, there's nothing that they can do without the United States, without NATO. They can talk big, but they don't have the means to confront Russia. They don't even have the means to keep supplying funds and arms to Ukraine because those arms, two things. One, that the arms were American, the effective arm. There were some European arms too, but the Patriot missiles and this and that, these are all American things. So firstly, number two, Trump is telling them you can keep supplying arms to Ukraine if you want, but you buy them from us, which is a further humiliation that they have to pay United States this time to be able to supply weaponry, and that weaponry again will be American largely. And number three, they don't have the funds left. That's why they're
Mm.
desperate to seize the Russian state assets and use them in some way or the other as a kind of security to give $140 billion or whatever it is to Ukraine because they don't have that money themselves. And there's a rift within the European Union because on an issue like this, they have to have a consensus. If they were to go into give money to Ukraine from EU funds, then they need a consensus. Then Hungary is not willing to join in, Slovakia is not willing to join in. But if they were to use Russian assets and confiscate them, they can take a vote by majority. Now the Americans have actually, in a sense, uh, you know, made even that impossible by saying by in this 21 point plan or 18-point plan that they intend to use these very assets in consultation with Russia for the reconstruction of Ukraine after a peace agreement, which means that these funds, if they were to be used by the Europeans, if they were to agree to that, they will be now crossing swords with the Americans, who have reserved these funds for their use in consultation with Russia for the reconstruction of Ukraine subsequently, which means the Americans see money, they see money for the construction companies without putting in any money of their own. So this is their frustration. The other frustration is that, or the fourth frustration is that they don't have the strength to deal with India. like Trump is dealing with India in a very aggressive and domineering manner. But they don't have that strength. As it is, uh, they have a problem with China. Now, if they have a problem with India, then what do? The economies are not doing well.
Mm.
The demography is not going to do well, is not doing well. They have big problems now with the United States. They want to be able to diversify also their export markets and partners, investment and otherwise. And when they look around, since they can't do it with China, who do they do it with?
Yeah.
In India. So this is their frustration that they can't browbeat India because they also need India. Now these three ambassadors who who uh, who edited, who wrote this op-ed, uh, actually it was totally unnecessary on their part to do that. The first, but firstly because there was nothing new that they had to say, because everything that needed to be said about India's policies towards Ukraine and the unhappiness with it has been said over 3 years. So what's the point in again regurgitating the same thing 3 days before Putin's visit? Now, why did they do it? Is because they thought that they will try and foul up the atmosphere a little bit to the extent they can, raise the questionability, moral and political, of India giving these honors to Putin, activate those lobbies in India, pro-Western lobbies in India, who will pick this up and say, India is not playing its cards well, and it should be mindful that there'll be a price to pay with the Europeans if we went ahead and welcomed Putin the way we intended to do. In other words, interfering in our in internal affairs and not being able to say this directly to our foreign office, who will shoo them off. So they went over the head and went directly to the public through our media. But I would hold the media even more responsible than this,
Yeah.
for this, than these ambassadors. After all, the Times of India, the Indian Express, and all, they should have used their judgment and said that this is, I mean, this uh, you can't use our columns for propaganda because
This
it's sheer.
slander. Yeah.
You can't use that, and there is a state visit coming. After all, they're Indian nationals, no? These
Mm.
people, the state visit coming, we can't have such a propagandist kind of a article by you. They could have rejected it, but they allowed their columns to be used. And then Indian Express, their journalists asked the visiting deputy foreign minister of Poland, what do you think about Putin's visit to India? What second question? What would you want Prime Minister Modi to say President Putin when he comes here? Come on, I mean, you are actually inviting them to say the kind of things that they want to say. What for? What is it that they'll say that will be in any way helpful in
Yeah.
advance of the win?
Yeah.
So, so I don't understand what the thinking behind this is in editorial circles, that they can give this kind of space to foreign ambassadors. Now, the other thing is that somebody said that okay, they can now invite the Russian ambassador to give a response. No, I mean, our newspapers meant for diplomatic cockfights between ambassadors in this country. What kind of? I mean, we should have the mindset of an important country. We don't have that. We have the mindset of a banana republic. I'm talking of the media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. The foreign ambassador says this and oh, la, we must print it and this and that. So what? I mean, I've been ambassador to so many countries, and I've tried to espouse our case, not hitting any third country, but simply wanting to use the space of major uh, European newspapers or American newspapers to be able to convey our thinking on issues on which we are being attacked. But they never give you space. They never give you space because their own editorial policy is very different. So, what is our editorial policy? to give space to ambassadors and foreigners to hit at government of India. What- So I'm a bit
Yeah,
surprised.
yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. When you look at this sort of a scenario, and I mean, my mood question with America, sir. I'll come to the national security strategy, which I find to be an eyewash. Actually, um, there's been no reaction from America. What did they take Trump's phone away, or they kept him busy in the FIFA World Cup, gave him an award, and kept him quiet? What happened? That's very interesting because this means either of two things: one, there are more tariffs coming in, or two, I mean, it just stays the way it is, and the antagonism goes further. Because we also see a delegation of the trade team and senior White House officials and this and that on the way here. Of course, this would be a planned trip, but the sheer fact that the announcement came the second Putin landed in India is no coincidence.
Well, one can look at it also from a third angle,
So,
which is that he himself, Trump that is, gave red carpet treatment to Putin in
Putin,
Alaska.
yeah,
But then, Trump can sort of swing this way or that way, unmindful of the contradictions in his statements and policies. But nevertheless, but more importantly, just before Putin came to India, he met Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of Trump,
mm,
in order to have in-depth discussions on
this
the peace
world
plan.
peace, mm,
Now, when they are engaging Trump, when they're engaging Putin uh, on the eve of his visit to India, and in which the family member of Trump himself is involved, and they are talking about investments in Russia,
Russia.
uh, building up economic partnerships. They're looking at also the business angle. Now, then how does he then criticize India for receiving Putin? It doesn't make sense. He'll make an ass of himself. Not that he used to making an ass of himself, but nevertheless, I mean, there's the world watching.
Yeah,
There's the
yeah,
world watching, and they come to their own conclusions. And in fact, he will lose credibility even more. All this business of double standards and everything else. He himself thinks that not only Putin is worth talking to, but there are the good prospects of reaching some kind of an agreement with him, and therefore he has to be engaged. And we have to do business with Russia. And my family is involved in business, but India can't do business with Russia or Putin or invite him here. So I think that probably explains why, for the moment, he's quiet, but he's not lifted the extra 25%
that's
penalty
the
tariff.
point. That's
Mm,
the point. I mean, India can't do business with Russia. That's the moot point, right? It's not about the oil. It's not about anything else. It's about the fact that we can't, and the sanctions remain in spite of the fact that we have actually sold the west coast of the east coast of Americas 60,000 barrels of oil. We are
mm,
selling it to them continuously,
mm.
but the tariffs remain.
Well,
So
the tariffs remain to my mind, for a couple of reasons. One is that the trade deal has not been finalized,
mhm.
and he's not got what he wanted from the trade deal, in the sense that he can't then project it as a win-win-win for United States, because it has to be a total win for United States.
Yeah, yeah.
He doesn't want a fair and equal deal. No, it has to be a deal as he wants, which he can then say that my imposition of 25% penalty tariffs has actually uh, but has actually forced India to give me what I want. Remember, uh, Besant said, or Lutnick said, one of the two, that you will see that in a month's time, uh, India will come and apologize to Trump. You remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
The-
3 months ago, so I tweeted about it,
Now,
tagging Lutnick as well.
exactly. So now this has been their mindset. And now, if they were to, especially before Putin's visit, if he were to lift these tariffs, then it will be actually exposing himself. In fact, people would then say that you are indirectly rewarding India for inviting Putin. So that he couldn't do. And now he can't do for the reason that I mentioned because he hasn't got what he wanted so far. And it hasn't worked. And if you were to lift the 25% penalty tariffs without extracting a one sided trade deal, then how does he justify the entire tariff policy towards India? So he's in a bit of a dilemma. Now, as you rightly said, the team is coming in a few days. But from our side, I have it on good authority, good authority. I mean, it's not for public, it's not as if this position is for public consumption, that whatever we wanted, whatever we could agree to and were prepared to agree to has been agreed to in July this year. And after that, we have not made any concessions and we are not going to make any concessions. It is take it or leave it. So even if
Wow.
these guys, even if these guys come, I don't think from our side, barring one or two little tweaks with regard to quotas here and there, which we had offered, which they haven't accepted, maybe that can be agreed to, but nothing beyond that, nothing beyond that.
Wow. Wow.
So therefore, Trump will have to take a call whether he's willing to have a deal of that kind or keep India on the tenter hooks. The other thing is that while of course we've been hurt, look, despite these tariffs and everything else, whatever the explanation that we may have, we had 8.3% growth in the last quarter. This is after Trump did what he did.
Yep.
So this gives us a sense of confidence
Hmm.
that we've been able to weather it, even if some aspects of our economy have suffered. We've also been able to find other markets, and this will now drive our people to actually look at other markets for the kind of things that we were selling to the United States. And then the FTA with India, with the UK, which has not yet fully come into force because the UK Parliament has to ratify it. Uh, but that will then open up possibilities on textiles and other things which have been hurt
Hmm.
because of US tariffs. And if the thing with if the FTA with the European Union also is finalized, then we have again on textiles and all other things because a huge consumption market, the European one. Again, then we have openings there. So it's not as if we've cornered so badly that we have to yield on our basic position. That's where things are, and let's see what happens.
As a matter of fact, industry to industry, we've actually done pretty well, sir. Well,
Mm.
if you take the comparison which is happening, textiles and apparels a little bit down, but they've found alternative markets, and overall there's a slight growth.
Yeah, yeah.
Exports have actually overall exports have gone up, and in these industries where the focus was there, of course, a
The
lot of
other thing I can share with you again on good authority
so
is that the U.S. corporate sector is still very keen to keep investing in India,
yeah,
and
that's really funny.
they are not they are not being uh, discouraged
Mm,
by Trump's policies. They know that their longer term interest lies in collaborating with India, especially in the areas in which the US wants to keep its lead, artificial intelligence, this and that, all the new things. Uh, India's cooperation in this is vital for them because the kind of scaling up that they need can only come from a country like India, where we have
that's
such
true.
large numbers working in these areas, semiconductors and artificial intelligence and what have you. So they see India as almost indispensable, and the global capability centers are going to actually increase in numbers.
Mm,
Already over 60% of these GCCs are American corporations.
yeah, yeah,
So that will also grow. So there is no at the moment there is no disincentive to the U.S. corporations with regard to economic opportunities in India. And with our growth numbers, and if they are sustained, and with the liberalization that we are now doing, uh, including labor reforms or whatever it is, I think we are creating an ecosystem in which we're going to make our market even more attractive to Western companies, to US corporations. It's a
I want to
challenge.
come. Yeah,
It's a
it
challenge,
is.
but we are meeting it. Yes.
I want to come to a point of with USA where you see the defense agreements going forward. Of course, the Russian one is going to hit them really hard. Prelos is a much more wider agreement. Um, this the agreement that was recently signed with Pete Hegseth and Mr. Rajnath Singh. Um, there was a this thing here, and I personally felt the reaction that Arunachal was a reaction to that. And when you go back in history, every time we've signed some sort of a defense agreement with the US, China comes up with Arunachal, and it's just it's a very this thing. But coming to the main thing, sir, uh, we signed this defense agreement. We had yesterday counter-terrorism meeting happened where they've actually supported our cause on this thing. They've condemned the attack in Delhi. They've condemned the attack in Pahalgam. They supported Lashkar-e-Taiba going forward. For more sanctions and stuff. The Quad suddenly starts meeting up. Uh, watch this, because this is not the national security policy. In as per the national security policy, allegedly they're going back home. They're disengaging from everywhere.
A couple of things. One is that the renewal of the 10-year defense cooperation agreement, uh, in the context in which it was signed, was normal, because uh, neither side wanted that defense pact to lapse, and therefore, since it had to be renewed, it has been renewed. But this is essentially on paper. It all depends on what you want to put into it, and that's where the problem has been. Uh, Now, some part of the uh, defense things, for example, exercises, Malabar, this and that, army to army, navy to navy, air to air, tri service, they'll continue. In fact, we have had just recently a joint military exercise
Yeah.
also. Uh, that part will continue. Negotiations for uh, emergency procurement of certain number of javelin missiles, plus this ammunition, whatever it's called, that has also proceeded according to schedule. The contract that had been signed for this MQ, whatever it is, Reaper thing, that is being implemented. We have HAL and GE have signed this agreement for
Yeah.
GE 4 engines. So I think on our side, the approach is that wherever things are proceeding in the normal course, we are not going to uh, obstruct that process because we are angry with Putin, with Trump. So we will let that go forward because, and this is realistic, this is sensible, that all said and done, the relationship with the United States is very, very important. In fact, in many, many ways, it's the most important relationship we have. Therefore, uh, why do we want to create more complications for ourselves by hitting back with petulance because we are unhappy with Trump? Okay, on the main thing in which he wants to extract concessions from us, we will not do so. But in other areas where there is mutuality of interest, where we have also an interest, we will go ahead. So we've agreed also on a some kind of a for these naval aircraft, MH, whatever they are, for how do you say that for
Reconnaissance.
no, for maintaining the
MH-60, the helicopters, sir.
yeah, yeah. There is a kind of another packet which is necessary for maintaining them or whatever it is. We've
Yeah.
signed that also. So so uh, so that is the one part in terms of where both sides are allowing that part of the relationship to move forward. Insofar as Quad is concerned, the Quad has received a very serious setback. Let's not have any doubt about it. No matter this meeting that took place, it is because they don't want to, uh, bury the Quad. So, to the extent that at this level the Quad meeting can take place, is fine. Um, But the summit is not taking place this year. It may or may not take place next year. It will depend a lot on what signals um, Trump wants to send to China. I mean, he can say outrageous things like G2 and everything else with China. Uh, Now, insofar as the national security strategy is concerned, I understand, I must read it, that the word Quad is mentioned only once.
Yeah,
And number two, the emphasis on relations with India is to develop commercial ties and encourage India in the context of enhancing commercial ties to play a security role in the Indo-Pacific.
yeah.
That's a very peculiar kind of a formulation that India is not being visualized really as a strategic partner. There's no mention of strategic partnership with India,
Those words are
or
gone.
or as a technology partner, commercial partner. Coming back to the same thing, Indian market must be open. We must be able to sell more, address the trade imbalance between the two countries, and encourage India as if India needed encouragement to to be a security partner in the Indo-Pacific. I don't understand the language. I mean, after all, after so many years of being together in Quad and having discussions right up to the summit level, the agenda is very clear as to what everybody wants to achieve. That apart from various other areas of cooperation, deterrence against China is very much central to the Quad project. But here they say, no, no, as if India needs to be. Now, in fact, there is a little bit of, how should I say, a negative undertone to this, which is a bit serious.
Hmm.
Because to encourage India to play a more security role in the Indo-Pacific means that India is not living up to US expectations. And then if you connect this to the fact that they want to do burden sharing, they want Europe to spend much more money on its defense, they want Japan to do that, they want South Korea to do that, which means that they want India to buy more arms from the United States, then to be able to play the kind of security role that the United States wants India to play in the Indo-Pacific. You must understand. I'm not saying you personally. One must understand the nuance in this, the
Yeah.
potential nuance in this. And
Mm.
I'm going to write about that because this point
No,
should
there
not
is,
be.
there is. Actually, sir, I look at it in a little. I mean, it's a very interesting point that you raised. But the whole report, I actually spent the evening day before yesterday reading the thing. Uh, uh, the whole report stank of deception
Hmm.
to me because their ground actions, what they're taking right now. Look at their incursions in Central Asia. Look at their incursions inside Pakistan, Myanmar. Look at the attempts to cut off Chinese oil from Venezuela and Iran. Look at the attacks on the Russian tankers. Look at the attacks on the Russian oil facilities. This to me looks like a very clear plan of cutting off or threatening to cut off the oil of China. You can't cut off the entire thing because there are the pipelines between Russia and China, but they're making it difficult for the Chinese to buy oil from outside. And their influence is being off. I mean, not that I am really happy that this is happening. Fantastic, because Chinese kind of deserve it in some aspect of it. But you can see that happening. You can see Pakistan switching ships. You can see them getting into Central Asia, doing these $8-10 billion deals, the Trump corridor from the Zanzibar corridor, Trans-Caspian, and this and that. Uh, Iran, the whole issue is happening. They've basically checked out the Chinese from the Middle East. Uh, their actions don't show me the fact that they're trying to withdraw, and to the kind of sprinkle on the cake is the Japanese aggression today, which started before, and the Chinese said we'll cut off your prime minister's throat. And then one call, Trump tells the Japanese calm down, they calm down, and then again something happens today and this thing is back again. I believe the Chinese flew in two aircraft and locked on to uh, gave a radar lock on to some Japanese fighters in that region. So that thing is starting up again. I don't see the whole so-called Monroe doctrine that everybody's talking about. They're withdrawing. I don't see that on the ground. So it's a deception.
Well, I think there is that in the national security strategy particular line which is very revealing that United States, I'm not reproducing it textually because I don't have it in front of me, but this is the
Mm,
gist of it.
mm.
And this is something which has been said earlier, that we will not allow any other power to rise which can threaten US interests. It says that.
Mm.
If you take it literally, what does it mean? You have to take it literally. So what does
Yeah.
it mean? No, but there is a little danger in that for India too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, sir.
Because it's not only China, we not allow any power to rise which can potentially threaten US interests. So, which means that they would also want to keep countries like India, if it rises too fast and becomes too independent, like to also exert some control
Yeah,
on
we do see
it.
that, sir.
So,
We do see
so
that.
China certainly falls into that category. And it makes sense from the realpolitik point of view, because if China has been biding time all these years to develop its capacities so that it could challenge the United States, look at it from the US angle today, that they slept during this period and didn't realize that China had caught up so quickly. And now also they want to buy time. So they reach out to China. And Trump says all kinds of flattering things about Xi Jinping. A wonderful chap. I get along very well with him. We respect each other. He's a great leader. He's buying time. At the
Yeah,
same time, he is developing capacities on the ground, semiconductors, rare earths, and everything else. It's a frenetic effort that they are making domestically
yeah,
and internationally to become less dependent on China. So this will continue even as they engage China. So this is a process that is going on. But I agree with you. It's not as if it is only hemispheric and they're going to confine themselves to the Western Hemisphere. No, uh, they they have a global agenda. As part of that global agenda, all that they really want is that they don't want to bear the entire burden, security burden. They want burden sharing, and therefore they are going to compel, impel, persuade the partner,
encourage.
encourage to buy, to assume more responsibilities. Now, assuming more responsibility means that you have to
But,
develop
yeah,
capacities and arm yourself, which then means you buy arms from us, from the
yeah,
United States.
yeah. It's a funny word, sir. My last set of questions. There are two questions, as a matter of fact. One is that, sir, now what do you think is the future of the India-US relationship? Because one, as far as the tariffs are concerned, also got us in the loop with the Supreme Court. Now that decision, although happened in November, but is supposed to come out in February, so that I'm sure is hurting Trump quite a bit. Uh, that is one part of it. So I don't see any breakaway, even if there's some, oh, okay, fine, we are ready for a trade deal and this and that. I don't see that happening at all. It's going to be those nice statements coming again. Yes, we will do it as soon as possible. The second part of it is that the region here and Trump's adventures within Pakistan and this and that are now being criticized. Finally, somebody woke up in America. How do you see these two, three things combining together itself to create some sort of a game for India? Or will it actually convert into something, or it's just regular politics which is playing out?
A couple of things. One, of course, is that the polarization in the United States is deepening,
Yeah.
and the challenge to Trump, even within the Republican Party, is beginning to show. Uh, some of the losses recently in the elections that the Republicans have suffered point in that direction.
Yeah.
And therefore, uh, I think it will be crucial what happens in the midterm elections. And the outlook on that uh, is not as certain in favor of Trump as it might have been. Uh,
Mm.
Plus, the Supreme Court judgment. Trump is already uh, anticipating that the Supreme Court judgment may go against him, and he's raising the ante that how can I return trillions of dollars that we have banked. already can we return them and stuff like that. The numbers are bogus in any case, but there it is.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so that polarization is creating the kind of uh, challenge to him which we see in the letter or in the representation by 40 congressmen about Pakistan, about what is happening in Pakistan, the militarization of Pakistan, and this and that, which is a good thing that uh, his love fest with Pakistan is being questioned because what has happened recently in Pakistan in terms of the constitutional amendment, Asim Munir becoming chief of defense staff, and everything else, and the setback to democracy in Pakistan. Uh, these issues have come to the fore.
Yeah.
The other thing which is going to create complications for whatever the United States wants to do vis-a-vis Pakistan is what's happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which will be very difficult for the United States to control, and for Trump in particular. Although I just don't understand why he said that he wants to take back Bagram, which means he wants to re-enter Afghanistan after after lamenting the fact that so much money and men were material was wasted for 18 years of the Afghan war or 20 years of the Afghan war, and he wants to come back into this, which he'll have to if he's so keen to do big time investment in Pakistan. Then he has to stabilize Balochistan. He has to stabilize the relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan, which means direct interference. So it's not possible politically.
Not
Uh,
gonna happen.
so therefore, uh, I think his lack of geopolitical sense and reducing everything to a business transaction is beginning to show its limitations, and that's what's happening with Pakistan. Even even with this business in Congo and Rwanda, although he signed that once again that agreement and this and that, but again that agreement is falling apart on the ground. Uh, I don't know what's going to happen in the in the Gaza. So there's a lot
Mm.
of uncertainties ahead with regard to
He's
that.
just been removed off the media. That's all.
Yeah. So the long and short is that under Trump, I mean, he look if you go in if you go into a house and start kicking the furniture around and overturning the furniture around, and bringing down all the artifacts and the paintings and everything else, and leave them on the floor and create a chaotic situation. That's not politics. That's not policy. This is what he's doing. He's upsetting everything, and he thinks that he can control the fallout of that. I mean, the world is much larger than what Trump's geopolitical vision is, or trade vision is, or business vision is. He can't control everything. Now, another point important in this is that Western hegemony, I've argued that before, endured so long because the United States and Europe, which together form the West, had the power
Yes.
to do so
Yeah,
together.
they fulfill.
Once they start breaking apart,
Mm.
then the West is weakened, which means the Western hegemony is weakened, which means it creates space for others to actually find for themselves a greater
Yeah, yeah,
hold and
yeah.
say in international relations. So, uh, if United States really at a unilateral moment, it's not as if US has not been unilateralist before. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the field was open.
Mm.
United States took so many initiatives destroying this country, destroying that country, regime change, this and that. At the end of the day, what has happened? Everything has backfired. Today, China poses a much greater threat to the United States than Russia ever did in the larger sense, in the sense
Yeah,
that Russia was not economically strong, but China is very strong economically, largest commercial trade partner of the entire world, including the United States. So now unilateralism of the kind they enjoyed in the 90s
Yeah,
is not be repeated, no matter what his inclination is to throw his weight around. So what United States and Trump are doing is going to be problematic for the world, but problematic also for the United States.
yeah. And lastly, sir, when you look at India today, we are in a very interesting position. We seem to have built up a certain amount of resistance to Trump, which wasn't there initially. We were a little, scammy, scary, or whatever. We were not in the right place when initially this assault from Trump started. Uh, we built up that resistance, and today we look at things different. I think the 8.2% was a big shot in the arm. How do you see us playing the game going forward, sir?
I think we are, it's a challenge. Look, let's not say that it's not a challenge. It's
Yeah.
a challenge for the entire world. It's a challenge even for China to handle Trump. And the fact that they have threatened him with the reverse restrictions on technology, rare earth magnets, and this and that, uh, shows that their backs were against the wall. And they had to unleash this weapon to parry the United States. So everybody is in difficulty, and so are we. Except that very wisely, we have been quiet. We have not made statements against Trump. We have not picked up open quarrel with him, challenged him. Uh, we've been discreet through our through our resistance to his demands on the tariff side, on the trade side, by conceding many things. We have sorry, we stood firm on our fundamental position. And with regard to maintaining our strategic autonomy, while we're not challenging the United States, but we openly and frankly, we are maintaining our strategic autonomy where we feel our vital interests are involved. And we are not giving up the Russian option because that is extremely vital for us, both in dealing with the United States as well as with China. So we'll continue to do that. The other advantage we have is that unlike China, which is a massive economy now, but facing serious problems, demography, debt, whatever, we know what the problems that China is facing. India is not facing those kind of problems. So India's future in that sense, in terms of a
More
partner of
secure.
it, is there, both for Europe and United States, and potentially for China, if if they are willing to resolve larger geopolitical issues with us. And Russia certainly. In fact, Putin, I just heard him say that today our relations with India were not what they used to be. This was in the context of how India has grown, how India
Yeah.
has become a much more
Yeah.
important partner. The equations have changed. So Russia has also recognized that India is now a much more valuable partner than it was before
Mm.
when our relationship as it is today remained very good and stable. So if we can play our cards right and weather the challenges that we are currently facing, I think not only can we manage them, but we can come out on top.
Hmm. Interesting, sir. That is something I think you know we need to we need to work towards, because at the end of it, when we are looking at um, the global scenario, things are not going to be easy going forward. It's going to be pretty tough, because as this whole structure fragments, I think there's going to be more and more challenges going forward.
Yeah, but
So
on this payment system and all, which is very much germane to the whole issue of
yeah, yeah,
US weaponizing the dollar and the financial system.
true.
There, we are going in increasing for payment in national currencies and developing some kind of national payment systems. This is a progressive road towards relying less and less on the dollar for our external trade. Um, so, so within BRICS, within the SCO, this can take some momentum. Uh, Cautiously, but it can take some momentum. That can then release certain pressures on us if we can insulate ourselves a little bit from
Mm,
the American chokehold on the global financial system.
that's true, sir.
Mm.
Thank you, sir, for the time. And of course, it's always as you always a learning experience to talk to you. The world is going to be an interesting place going forward. That's something that we know, and I think Russia's visit, as you described it, it's one of the most important in the recent times. It's going to prove so. Thank you so much once again, and to the audience.
Thank you.
To the audience, my request: please like and subscribe, and of course, support the channel. Namaskar.